I stood frozen in the bank manager's office, staring at a computer screen that showed my account balance as zero. $290,000 gone. 8 years of sacrificing every luxury, every weekend trip, every expensive dinner had vanished overnight. Sarah was sitting in the parking lot, probably scrolling through wedding vendor emails, completely unaware that our dream ceremony had just become impossible. My mother's tearful voice echoed in my head from 3 days earlier, begging me to save my father's life by emptying my wedding fund for his emergency surgery. The devastating truth was crystallizing with each passing second. My name is Reginald, and I need to explain how I ended up in this nightmare. Growing up in suburban Denver, Colorado, I learned early that being the oldest son in the Thompson family meant being invisible. My parents, Robert and Linda, owned a small accounting firm that provided them with a comfortable middle-class lifestyle. They lived in a 3-bedroom ranch house with a 2-car garage and a backyard, where my father grilled burgers every 4th of July. But their true devotion was reserved entirely for my younger brother Marcus. 3 years separated us in age, but a lifetime divided us in treatment. When Marcus turned 16, our parents surprised him with a brand new BMW sedan, complete with custom leather interior and premium sound system. They held a party in our backyard, inviting half the neighborhood to celebrate their golden child receiving his first car. 2 months later, when I reached the same milestone, they handed me keys to a 10-year-old Honda Civic with rust spots around the wheel wells and a radio that only picked up AM stations. No party, no celebration. Just a casual mention at dinner that I should be grateful for reliable transportation. College admissions brought another stark reminder of their priorities. Marcus chose USC, declaring his intention to study business administration while joining the most expensive fraternity on campus. Our parents wrote check after check without hesitation, covering his tuition, dormitory fees, meal plans, and spring break trips to Cabo San Lucas. They beamed with pride when discussing their son's prestigious university experience at family gatherings. Meanwhile, I worked 3 jobs throughout high school to save money for Colorado State University. I delivered newspapers before dawn, bagged groceries after school, and cleaned office buildings on weekends. Our parents offered exactly zero financial assistance, explaining that character development required self-reliance. I lived off ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches while sharing a cramped apartment with 2 roommates who never washed dishes. After graduation, I landed a software engineering position at a tech startup in Boulder. My salary started modest, but I had learned discipline from years of scraping together lunch money. Every paycheck got divided precisely: rent, groceries, utilities, transportation, and savings. No exceptions, no splurges, no impulse purchases. My financial strategy became almost mathematical in its precision. $58,000 came from pure salary savings over 6 years living below my means, while colleagues bought expensive gadgets and took luxury vacations. $67,000 emerged from careful stock investments, researching companies for months before purchasing shares and holding them through market volatility. $49,000 accumulated from weekend consulting projects, building websites and mobile applications for small businesses while other people relaxed. The cryptocurrency surge of the early 20s provided $73,000 when I cashed out Bitcoin purchases made during college. Most people called digital currency a risky gamble, but I had studied blockchain technology and recognized its potential before mainstream adoption. Patience and timing converted small investments into substantial returns. My paternal grandmother left me $43,000 when she passed away 2 years ago. Grandma Rose had always treated Marcus and me equally, unlike our parents. She noticed the favoritism but never said anything directly, choosing instead to show love through actions. Her final gift represented the only family money I ever received, without strings attached. This wedding fund meant everything to me. It symbolized independence, responsibility, and building something meaningful without family assistance. Each dollar represented sacrifice and delayed gratification while watching Marcus receive endless financial support for his various pursuits. Sarah entered my life 2 years ago at a coding boot camp in downtown Denver. She was transitioning from graphic design into web development, bringing artistic sensibility to technical challenges. Her background growing up in Portland had instilled values of environmental consciousness and social responsibility that resonated deeply with my own principles. Our relationship developed naturally around shared interests in technology, hiking, and cooking elaborate meals together. Sarah appreciated my financial discipline because she understood the difference between being cheap and being intentional with money. She had worked her way through design school and understood sacrifice. We began planning our wedding 18 months ago, researching venues throughout Colorado that could accommodate 150 guests. The Broadmoor in Colorado Springs became our dream location after touring their garden ceremony space overlooking Cheyenne Lake. We put down deposits for the reception hall, hired a photographer whose portfolio captured authentic emotions, and selected a caterer known for farm-to-table cuisine. Sarah designed our wedding invitations herself, incorporating mountain motifs and earthy colors that reflected our shared love of Colorado's natural beauty. We mailed them 6 weeks ago, receiving enthusiastic responses from friends and family members, excited to celebrate our union. My parents seemed supportive throughout the planning process, offering suggestions about flowers and asking questions about the guest list. They never offered financial contributions, which surprised nobody given their track record, but they appeared genuinely happy about my upcoming marriage. Marcus had recently announced his engagement to Victoria, daughter of a prominent Los Angeles plastic surgeon. Victoria came from serious money, the kind that bought houses without mortgages and vacationed in European villas owned by family friends. Their relationship moved quickly from introduction to engagement within 8 months. Last weekend, while helping my parents clean their attic for a garage sale, I discovered boxes of old financial documents dating back 20 years. Curiosity led me to examine bank statements and loan agreements that revealed a disturbing pattern. Marcus had received over $400,000 in various loans from our parents throughout college and his early career. None showed any repayment schedules. None carried interest rates. None appeared anywhere on tax documents. The documentation painted a clear picture of systematic favoritism spanning decades. Every time Marcus needed money for tuition, car repairs, apartment deposits, or business ventures, our parents opened their checkbook without hesitation. When I had asked for help with textbook costs during sophomore year, they lectured me about building character through self-sufficiency. I confronted them about this discovery, hoping for honest conversation about family dynamics. My father dismissed my concerns, claiming that Marcus needed more help because he faced greater challenges. My mother added that I had always been naturally responsible, implying that success came easily to me while Marcus struggled. Their explanation felt hollow and defensive, revealing how deeply ingrained their favoritism had become. They genuinely believed their differential treatment was justified, even when faced with concrete evidence of financial inequality. The next morning, everything changed when my phone rang at 3 a.m. with devastating news that would expose the true depths of their deception. My mother's voice shattered the early morning silence with panic I had never heard before. Linda Thompson, normally composed and controlled, sobbed uncontrollably through the phone connection. "Reginald, your father collapsed during his evening walk. The paramedics rushed him to Presbyterian St. Joseph Hospital. The doctors are saying he suffered a massive cardiac episode. They need to perform emergency triple bypass surgery, but there are complications." I bolted upright in bed, immediately alert despite the 3 a.m. wake-up call. Sarah stirred beside me as I switched on the bedside lamp, grabbing clothes from the dresser while keeping the phone pressed against my ear. What kind of complications, Mom? Is he stable right now? Her crying intensified before she could form words. The damage to his heart muscle is extensive. Dr. Patricia Hendricks, the cardiac surgeon, explained that he needs an experimental procedure that insurance companies do not cover. They want $80,000 up front, or they will transfer him to the county hospital where he might not survive. The 4-hour drive through mountain passes to Denver felt endless. Sarah insisted on coming, despite my protests that she should stay home and handle wedding vendor communications. Interstate 70 wound through terrain that normally filled me with appreciation for Colorado's natural beauty, but anxiety consumed all other thoughts. Presbyterian St. Joseph Hospital bustled with controlled medical urgency. Nurses moved efficiently between patient rooms, while families clustered in waiting areas speaking in hushed tones about loved ones fighting for survival. The cardiac wing smelled of antiseptic and floor wax, punctuated by the rhythmic beeping of monitoring equipment. My mother sat in the family consultation room, surrounded by used tissues and empty coffee cups. Her normally perfect makeup had smeared from hours of crying, and her silver hair hung limp around her shoulders. She embraced me with desperate strength when I arrived, whispering gratitude for my immediate response. "Dr. Hendricks will explain everything," she said, leading me toward a tall woman in surgical scrubs who approached with professional authority. Dr. Patricia Hendricks appeared every inch the expert cardiac surgeon. Her white coat bore no wrinkles, her surgical cap remained perfectly positioned, and her explanations combined medical precision with appropriate empathy. She guided us to a private conference room where anatomical charts covered the walls. "Your father's condition requires immediate intervention." She began pointing to a diagram of the human heart. "The blockages in his coronary arteries have created significant damage to the left ventricle. Traditional bypass surgery might not provide sufficient blood flow restoration." She continued describing the experimental procedure using technical terminology that sounded both convincing and urgent. The treatment involved implanting specially designed stents manufactured in Germany, combined with stem cell therapy to regenerate damaged heart tissue. Insurance companies considered it investigational, requiring complete private payment. "Without this procedure, your father has perhaps a 30% chance of survival. With it, we can increase his odds to 85%. But we need authorization and payment within the next 6 hours." The financial pressure felt crushing. My wedding fund represented 8 years of disciplined saving. Every sacrifice and delayed gratification crystallized into our future together. But my father's life hung in the balance, and no amount of money could compare to losing a parent. My mother produced the paperwork required to access our family emergency fund. Both my parents had established this account years earlier, requiring signatures from all 3 family members for withdrawals above $50,000. The safeguard was designed to prevent any single person from draining family resources during a crisis. I signed the authorization forms while my hands trembled. $80,000 transferred electronically within minutes, leaving $210,000 remaining in my wedding account. My father looked frail and exhausted when I finally saw him in the cardiac intensive care unit. Machines surrounded his bed, monitoring heart rhythm, blood pressure, and oxygen levels. Tubes and wires connected his body to life-supporting technology that beeped constantly in medical rhythm. "Son," he whispered weakly when he noticed my presence. "I did not want you to see me like this. Your mother should not have called you." His appearance shocked me. Robert Thompson had always projected strength and authority, commanding respect in business meetings and family gatherings. Now he seemed diminished, vulnerable, dependent on others for survival. "We are family, Dad. Nothing else matters right now except getting you healthy again." Over the next 3 days, I maintained constant vigil at the hospital. Sarah brought changes of clothing and home-cooked meals, providing emotional support, while managing wedding vendor communications from the hospital waiting room. The uncomfortable chairs in the cardiac wing became my temporary residence. Dr. Hendricks appeared regularly with updates about my father's condition. Complications arose during the initial procedure, requiring additional interventions. The German stents needed modification to fit his specific anatomy. The stem cell therapy required supplemental treatments to ensure proper integration. Each update came with additional financial requirements. $50,000 more for specialized equipment. Another $30,000 for extended intensive care monitoring. $60,000 for additional surgical procedures when initial results showed insufficient improvement. My mother's emotional state deteriorated with each setback. She blamed herself for my father's condition, claiming that stress from their business had contributed to his cardiac problems. Her tears seemed endless, and her gratitude for my financial assistance felt overwhelming. Extended family members arrived throughout the weekend. Uncle David and Aunt Carol drove from Colorado Springs, bringing casseroles and offering prayers. Cousins Jennifer and Michael flew in from Phoenix, taking shifts in the waiting room while discussing childhood memories of their favorite uncle. Everyone praised my willingness to sacrifice my wedding fund for family needs. Their comments about loyalty and putting family first created additional emotional pressure to continue providing whatever money the doctors required. By Tuesday morning, my wedding fund had been completely depleted. $290,000 transferred to cover medical expenses, experimental procedures, and extended hospital care. Dr. Hendricks assured us that the treatments were working and my father's condition was stabilizing. Wednesday brought remarkable improvement. My father's color returned, his breathing became less labored, and his energy levels increased noticeably. Dr. Hendricks called it a miraculous recovery, explaining that the experimental procedures had exceeded all expectations. Thursday afternoon. As I prepared to drive home and begin the painful process of canceling our wedding arrangements, I took a detour past Blackstone Country Club, where my father had maintained membership for 15 years. His car sat in the parking lot, engine still warm from recent use. My father's navy blue Lexus sedan gleamed in the afternoon sunlight, its chrome bumper reflecting the manicured landscaping of Blackstone Country Club. The vehicle that should have been parked in a hospital garage while its owner recovered from major cardiac surgery instead occupied a premium spot near the clubhouse entrance. I sat in my Honda Civic for 20 minutes, watching golfers emerge from the pro shop, carrying bags of newly purchased equipment. The scene felt surreal after 3 days of hospital vigils and medical crises. My father was supposed to be connected to monitoring devices, not selecting golf clubs. Robert Thompson appeared precisely at 4:30, walking with the steady gait of someone whose cardiovascular system functioned perfectly. He wore his favorite golf polo and khaki pants, the same outfit he donned every Thursday for his regular foursome with retired business associates. No signs of weakness or medical trauma were evident in his confident stride. He stopped abruptly when our eyes met across the parking lot. The color drained from his face as he realized the magnitude of his mistake. For several seconds, he stood frozen like someone caught burglarizing a neighbor's house. "Dad, what exactly are you doing here?" His mouth opened and closed without producing sound. The man who had built a successful accounting practice through quick thinking and smooth explanations could not formulate a coherent response. "I can explain everything, son. The doctors said light exercise would help my recovery. Golf is therapeutic. Dr. Hendricks specifically recommended gradual activity to strengthen my heart muscle." The lies tumbled out faster as his panic increased. He claimed the hospital had discharged him early due to his remarkable progress. The experimental procedure had worked so well that continued monitoring was unnecessary. He was following strict medical guidance about progressive rehabilitation. None of his explanations made sense. Patients who undergo major cardiac surgery require weeks of careful monitoring and gradual activity increases. Walking 18 holes of golf 3 days after experimental heart procedures violated every principle of cardiac rehabilitation. I followed his Lexus back to their house, maintaining distance while he made frantic phone calls during the drive. Through his rear window, I could see animated gestures as he spoke with someone who was clearly receiving unexpected news about my presence at the country club. My mother met us in their driveway with an expression of barely controlled panic. Linda Thompson had spent 3 days portraying a distraught wife facing the potential loss of her husband, but now she looked like a co-conspirator whose elaborate scheme was unraveling. Reginald, we can explain everything. Your father is feeling much better, and we wanted to surprise you with his recovery. We know how worried you were, so we thought positive news would be better than involving you in every small medical detail. Their explanations became increasingly desperate and contradictory. They claimed the hospital stay had been shorter than expected. The medical procedures had worked better than anticipated. Dr. Hendricks had cleared him for normal activities ahead of schedule, but I had spent enough time in that hospital to know their stories made no sense. Cardiac patients do not recover from experimental surgery and immediately resume golf games. Insurance companies do not refuse coverage for medically necessary procedures, but approve experimental treatments. Friday morning, I hired private investigator Janet Morrison, a former police detective who specialized in financial fraud cases. Her reputation for thoroughness and discretion made her the obvious choice for uncovering whatever truth my parents were hiding. Janet's initial discoveries shattered any remaining belief in my parents' honesty. Presbyterian St. Joseph Hospital had no record of Robert Thompson being admitted during the previous week. No patient matching his description had received cardiac surgery. No Dr. Patricia Hendricks worked in their cardiac department. The bank records told the real story. My wedding fund money had been transferred to an account controlled jointly by both parents, then immediately moved again within hours. The funds were not paying medical bills or hospital expenses. Marcus's social media profiles revealed the truth with devastating clarity. Instagram posts from Tuesday showed him and Victoria touring luxury suites at the Grand Wiley Resort in Maui, Hawaii. Wednesday brought photos of private beach dinners and couples spa treatments. Thursday featured videos of helicopter tours over volcanic landscapes. Victoria's Facebook timeline documented their engagement celebration in detail. Professional photographers had captured their proposal on Maui's famous Road to Hana, complete with sunset backdrop and champagne toasts. The resort's most expensive villa served as their base for a week-long celebration of their upcoming marriage. Property records revealed another layer of deception. My parents had co-signed a mortgage application for an $800,000 house in an exclusive Denver suburb. The down payment required exactly $290,000, matching my stolen wedding fund to the penny. Janet discovered a family text message group that excluded only me. Screenshots revealed months of planning for the deception. My mother's messages discussed the timing of the fake medical emergency, coordinating it with Marcus's honeymoon reservation. My father's texts focused on creating believable medical terminology and procedure descriptions. Marcus's contributions to the group chat were perhaps the most painful to read. He expressed confidence that I would never discover the truth, describing me as too trusting and naive to figure anything out. He wrote about deserving the money more than I did because his lifestyle required greater financial resources. Uncle David's uncomfortable admission, when I confronted him, revealed that most of the extended family knew about the plan. They had been recruited to play supporting roles during the hospital vigil, providing credibility to my parents' performance. Their expressions of sympathy and praise for my family loyalty were calculated manipulations. Sarah's reaction to learning the truth combined horror with fierce, protective anger. She held me while I processed the complete betrayal of trust that had characterized my entire life. Her family's genuine support contrasted sharply with the toxic dynamics I had accepted as normal. Legal consultation with attorney Benjamin Walsh revealed the complexity of pursuing criminal charges. While my parents had clearly committed fraud, family financial arrangements often fell into gray areas that prosecutors avoided. Civil litigation offered better prospects, but the process would be expensive and time-consuming. The emotional damage felt more devastating than the financial loss. 30 years of family relationships had been built on systematic deception and favoritism. Every childhood memory now carried questions about authenticity and manipulation. When I finally confronted my parents with Janet's evidence, their defensive responses revealed the depth of their entitlement. They argued that Marcus needed help more than I did, because his chosen lifestyle was more expensive. They claimed I was financially stable enough to handle the loss, while Marcus faced greater challenges in maintaining his standard of living. Their complete lack of remorse or acknowledgement of wrongdoing convinced me that reconciliation was impossible. They viewed my success as justification for their theft and my pain as an acceptable casualty in their favoritism toward Marcus. The discovery that broke my remaining emotional ties came when Janet revealed the date of Marcus and Victoria's wedding. They had scheduled their ceremony for the exact same weekend that Sarah and I were supposed to celebrate our marriage. The timing was not coincidental. Sarah and I sat in our apartment's kitchen at 2 a.m., surrounded by wedding planning materials that now represented canceled dreams and stolen futures. Vendor contracts, venue deposits, and catering agreements covered the table like evidence of financial crimes. But instead of despair, a new determination was crystallizing in both our hearts. We are not letting them win. Sarah declared, her green eyes blazing with protective fury. They stole your money, but they cannot steal our happiness. We are getting married this weekend, and we are going to make them pay for what they have done. Our emergency wedding planning began immediately. Sarah's college friend Emma owned a rustic mountain cabin near Estes Park that could accommodate our closest friends and family members. The intimate setting offered everything we needed for a meaningful ceremony: stunning Rocky Mountain views, comfortable accommodations, and complete privacy from the toxic Thompson family drama. Within 72 hours, we had arranged everything necessary for our secret ceremony. The local florist in Estes Park agreed to create simple wildflower arrangements that complemented the natural mountain setting. A small-town baker crafted a 2-tier cake decorated with Colorado columbines and aspen leaves. Our photographer friend David offered to document the intimate celebration without charge. Sarah's family embraced our emergency plans with enthusiasm and support that highlighted the stark contrast with my biological relatives. Her parents, William and Margaret, flew in from Portland immediately upon learning about our situation. They offered both emotional comfort and practical assistance, treating me as the son they had gained rather than an inconvenience during crisis. Meanwhile, I launched the second phase of our strategy with forensic accountant Trevor Martinez, a specialist in white-collar crime investigation. Trevor's analysis of my parents' business records revealed systematic financial irregularities spanning 15 years of operation. Thompson Accounting Services had been systematically diverting client funds for personal use, employing creative bookkeeping techniques to hide the theft. Temporary transfers became permanent loans. Estate account funds found their way into family investment portfolios. Elderly clients' trust funds provided financing for my parents' lifestyle upgrades. The scope of their criminal activity extended far beyond my stolen wedding fund. Client invoices showed billing for services never provided. Tax returns contained deductions for fictional expenses. Corporate filings omitted income sources that should have been reported to state and federal authorities. Marcus's various business loans from the accounting firm existed only on paper, lacking any legitimate documentation or repayment structures. The transactions appeared designed to transfer corporate profits to family members without proper tax implications. Trevor identified shell corporations that existed solely to move money between accounts, creating false consulting fees and service agreements that generated fraudulent business expenses. The complexity of their scheme suggested years of careful planning and systematic expansion. Evidence collection required gaining access to their office building during evening hours when the cleaning crew provided cover for photographing financial documents. Bank statements, client contracts, and tax preparation files revealed patterns of systematic fraud that would interest multiple law enforcement agencies. Parallel to gathering evidence, Sarah and I focused on creating the wedding celebration we truly wanted. Our guest list included 12 people who genuinely cared about our happiness. Sarah's immediate family, my 3 closest friends, and 2 cousins who had always treated me fairly regardless of family politics. The intimacy of our celebration stood in sharp contrast to the elaborate spectacle that Marcus and Victoria were planning with my stolen money. Their wedding would feature 300 guests, multiple costume changes, and enough floral arrangements to landscape a public park. Our ceremony would focus on authentic commitment and meaningful relationships. Sarah's father, William, offered to walk both of us down the aisle symbolically, giving away the daughter he had raised, while welcoming the son he was gaining. His gesture represented the kind of unconditional family love that I had never experienced from my biological parents. Bachelor and bachelorette celebrations were quiet affairs focused on friendship rather than excess. My closest friends gathered for an evening of reflection about the difference between chosen family and blood relatives. Their loyalty and support throughout the crisis had proven more valuable than decades of biological connection. Wedding preparations included securing our marriage license from the Larimer County Clerk's office and arranging a surprise honeymoon at a bed and breakfast in Napa Valley that Sarah had researched months earlier. The intimate vineyard setting would provide perfect recovery space after the emotional intensity of recent weeks. Evidence packages were prepared for simultaneous delivery to multiple agencies. The Internal Revenue Service Colorado Department of Revenue and State Professional Licensing Board would each receive comprehensive documentation of Thompson Accounting Services' fraudulent activities. Anonymous notification letters were drafted for all identified clients, warning them about potential theft of their funds and encouraging independent audits of their accounts. Elderly clients deserved protection from continued financial exploitation. Local media contacts received carefully prepared summaries of the investigation, complete with supporting documentation and expert analysis from Trevor Martinez. The story of prominent business owners stealing from clients would generate significant public interest and pressure for law enforcement action. Saturday morning arrived with perfect September weather, crisp mountain air carrying the scent of aspen leaves, beginning their autumn transformation. Sarah looked radiant in a simple ivory dress purchased from a boutique in downtown Estes Park, her auburn hair adorned with locally gathered wildflowers. Our ceremony was officiated by retired Judge Harrison McKenzie, a family friend of Sarah's parents, who had performed dozens of marriage ceremonies throughout his career. His warm personality and genuine investment in our happiness created exactly the right tone for our intimate celebration. The mountain cabin provided a perfect backdrop for exchanging vows we had written ourselves, focusing on themes of trust, loyalty, and building authentic partnership despite family dysfunction. My vows emphasized choosing love over obligation and creating healthy relationships through honesty and mutual respect. Sarah's vows spoke to the strength that emerges from supporting each other through adversity, and her commitment to building the kind of family that nurtures rather than manipulates its members. Her words brought tears to several guests who understood the significance of our unconventional journey to marriage. Our reception featured a homemade dinner, prepared collaboratively by Sarah's family, emphasizing the warmth and cooperation that characterized healthy relationships. Stories shared during toasts highlighted friendship loyalty and the courage required to break away from toxic family patterns. Dancing under string lights stretched between towering pine trees felt magical in ways that no expensive ballroom could have matched. The combination of mountain air, authentic celebration, and freedom from family drama created perfect contentment. Our wedding night in the cabin's master suite, overlooking Rocky Mountain National Park, provided time for processing the emotional complexity of recent weeks. We had married during one of the most challenging periods of our lives, but the experience had strengthened our partnership in ways that smooth circumstances never could. Sunday morning brought the systematic launch of our revenge strategy. Certified letters were mailed to the IRS, State Tax Board, and Professional Licensing Authority, each containing comprehensive evidence of Thompson Accounting Services' fraudulent activities. Anonymous notifications were sent to 73 identified clients, alerting them to investigate their accounts for potential theft. Phone calls were placed to local news media representatives providing tips about the accounting firm investigation. Social media posts documented our mountain wedding celebration, showing genuine happiness and intimate connection while avoiding any direct reference to family conflict. The contrast with Marcus and Victoria's elaborate Hawaiian displays would speak for itself. Within hours of launching our campaign, my parents' phone began ringing with questions from confused clients and concerned business associates. Their comfortable world of financial fraud and family favoritism was about to collapse under the weight of legal scrutiny and public exposure. The most satisfying moment came when the Colorado State Board of Accountancy announced the immediate suspension of both Robert and Linda Thompson's professional licenses, pending investigation of alleged fraudulent activities. Our Napa Valley honeymoon suite overlooked rolling vineyards that stretched toward distant hills painted golden by California's autumn sunlight. Sarah sat on the balcony wearing her favorite sundress, reading congratulation texts from friends while I monitored news alerts about my parents' rapidly disintegrating business empire. The suspension of their professional licenses had triggered an avalanche of consequences that exceeded our most optimistic expectations. Clients were demanding immediate account audits. Business partners were terminating contractual relationships. Professional liability insurance carriers were launching their own investigations. Private investigator Janet Morrison provided real-time updates about the escalating legal pressures facing Thompson Accounting Services. Federal agents had executed search warrants on both their office building and family residence, seizing computers, financial records, and business documents. Local television news coverage featured elderly clients describing suspicious account activities dating back years. Martha Henderson, an 86-year-old widow, tearfully explained how $30,000 from her late husband's life insurance had mysteriously disappeared from her estate account. Robert Franklin, a retired teacher, discovered that his pension fund contributions had been redirected without authorization. The human faces of my parents' victims provided moral validation for our aggressive response to their theft. These vulnerable people had trusted Thompson Accounting Services with their financial security, only to have that trust systematically exploited for personal enrichment. Marcus and Victoria's elaborate Hawaiian honeymoon was abruptly canceled when their resort reservations were terminated due to payment issues. The luxury villa that was supposed to showcase their perfect romance became unavailable as my parents' credit cards were frozen during the federal investigation. Victoria's wealthy family distanced themselves immediately upon learning about the Thompson family scandal. Her father, Dr. Harrison Blackwell, released a statement through his attorney expressing shock about the criminal allegations and emphasizing his family's complete separation from any fraudulent activities. The $800,000 house purchase collapsed when mortgage fraud was discovered during the title search process. The down payment funds were traced directly to my stolen wedding account, creating clear evidence of criminal conspiracy between my parents and Marcus. Professional liability claims against Thompson. Accounting services exceeded their insurance coverage by millions of dollars. 73 client families filed separate lawsuits seeking recovery of stolen funds, punitive damages, and compensation for emotional distress caused by the betrayal of fiduciary trust. Within 2 weeks of our wedding, my parents were forced to liquidate personal assets to cover legal expenses and client restitution demands. Their country club membership was surrendered. Luxury vehicles were repossessed. Investment properties were placed on the market at distressed prices. Attorney Benjamin Walsh filed harassment charges against my parents for their desperate attempt to frame me as the source of their business troubles. Police investigators quickly dismissed their allegations when bank records proved conclusively that all fraudulent transfers originated from accounts they controlled exclusively. The most dramatic moment came when federal marshals arrested my parents at Denver International Airport as they attempted to board a flight to Costa Rica with one-way tickets and substantial cash reserves. Their panicked flight attempt made headlines in local newspapers and provided compelling television footage for evening news broadcasts. Marcus faced his own cascade of legal and personal consequences. Victoria ended their engagement within days of the scandal breaking, returning her diamond ring through her attorney rather than meeting face-to-face. The public humiliation of canceled wedding plans and federal criminal charges made him radioactive in Denver's social circles. His declaration of personal bankruptcy followed quickly, as client lawsuits named him as a co-conspirator in the accounting firm's fraudulent scheme. Civil attorneys argued that his receipt of family funds made him liable for restitution to defrauded clients regardless of his direct participation in criminal activities. Property seizures included the family residence business assets and investment accounts accumulated over decades of professional practice. Federal authorities moved aggressively to prevent further asset hiding while ensuring maximum recovery for victims of the fraud scheme. The contrast between our authentic mountain wedding and their canceled luxury plans became a source of community conversation throughout Denver. Sarah's social media posts showing genuine happiness and intimate celebration highlighted the difference between real relationships and materialistic displays. Extended family members chose sides as the scandal dominated local news coverage. Cousins Jennifer and Michael publicly supported our decision to expose the fraud, expressing shame about their parents' previous knowledge and silence about the criminal activities. Uncle David faced his own professional consequences when his accounting license was suspended, pending investigation of his potential knowledge about Thompson Accounting Services' fraudulent practices. His decision to participate in the fake medical emergency exposed him to conspiracy charges. Community support rallied around the elderly victims, whose trust had been systematically exploited for decades. Local television stations featured investigative reports about financial elder abuse, using my parents' case as an example of warning signs that families should monitor. Sarah's strength throughout the crisis demonstrated the partnership value that authentic marriage provides during challenging circumstances. Her family's unwavering support created a foundation of emotional security that enabled me to pursue justice without fear of isolation. Therapeutic counseling helped process the complex grief associated with losing family relationships, while gaining clarity about toxic dynamics that had characterized my entire childhood. The favoritism I had accepted as normal was actually systematic emotional abuse designed to maintain control and hierarchy. Professional recognition followed my whistleblower courage when local business associations invited me to speak about detecting financial fraud and protecting vulnerable clients. The consulting opportunities that emerged from these presentations provided new income streams to replace my stolen wedding fund. My parents' desperate attempts to contact me from jail revealed their continued inability to accept responsibility for criminal choices. Their letters focused on blaming others, minimizing their actions, and demanding family loyalty despite overwhelming evidence of their guilt. The most satisfying development came when the federal courthouse announced sentencing dates for Robert and Linda Thompson. Their criminal trial had proceeded quickly due to overwhelming evidence and their failed attempt to flee the country, which demonstrated consciousness of guilt to the jury. The Rocky Mountain News headline read, "Prominent Denver accountants sentenced to federal prison," above photos of my parents being led away in handcuffs. 8 years each for wire fraud, money laundering, elder abuse, and tax evasion. The federal judge had rejected their plea bargain request, citing the vulnerability of their victims and their attempted flight from justice. Sarah and I sat in our apartment reading coverage of the sentencing while planning our second wedding celebration. The intimate mountain ceremony had satisfied our immediate need for authentic commitment, but we wanted to share our happiness with a larger circle of friends and family who had supported us throughout the crisis. Restitution orders required my parents to repay every penny stolen from clients, including the $290,000 taken from my wedding fund. Asset forfeiture proceedings had recovered most of the money through property seizures, business liquidation, and frozen bank accounts. Federal prosecutors had been particularly aggressive in pursuing financial recovery because elderly victims deserved complete restoration of their stolen funds. The judge ordered my parents to continue restitution payments even after their prison release, ensuring lifelong accountability for their criminal choices. Marcus faced separate sentencing for his role in the conspiracy, despite claiming ignorance about the source of his parents' generosity. Civil lawsuits from defrauded clients had named him as a co-conspirator, and his acceptance of obviously fraudulent funds made him liable for damages regardless of criminal intent. His engagement to Victoria had ended with maximum public humiliation when her family released a statement describing their shock and disgust about association with financial criminals. The cancellation of their elaborate wedding became a cautionary tale throughout Denver's social community about the importance of character over appearances. Personal bankruptcy proceedings stripped Marcus of all assets acquired through my parents' fraud, including his car, luxury apartment furnishings, and designer wardrobe purchased with stolen client funds. He was forced to move back to our childhood bedroom and seek employment at entry-level positions, despite his college education. The community response to my parents' downfall included strong support for their victims and recognition of my courage in exposing family criminality. Local television interviews allowed elderly clients to describe the impact of financial betrayal on their retirement security and peace of mind. Martha Henderson, the 86-year-old widow whose insurance money had been stolen, became particularly vocal about the importance of holding financial professionals accountable regardless of family relationships. Her testimony at the sentencing hearing had moved several jury members to tears. Professional associations throughout Colorado used my parents' case as a training example for detecting and reporting financial elder abuse. Their systematic exploitation of vulnerable clients represented a textbook example of how trusted advisors could manipulate their fiduciary responsibilities. Extended family relationships required careful navigation as relatives processed the truth about decades of criminal activity. Some cousins and aunts expressed gratitude for my willingness to expose the fraud, while others struggled with divided loyalties between family connections and moral principles. Uncle David faced his own criminal charges for participating in the fake medical emergency deception. His accounting license was permanently revoked, and he pleaded guilty to conspiracy charges in exchange for probation rather than prison time. His cooperation with prosecutors provided additional evidence about the scope of family fraud. The therapeutic process of rebuilding my identity around chosen relationships, rather than biological obligation, created space for genuine healing from decades of emotional manipulation. Sarah's family provided examples of healthy dynamics based on mutual respect, rather than favoritism and control. Our decision to donate half of the recovered funds to elder abuse prevention organizations generated positive community attention and demonstrated commitment to protecting other vulnerable people from similar victimization. The remaining money created an educational scholarship fund for first-generation college students. Property recovery included full restoration of my wedding fund, plus additional damages for emotional distress and lost investment opportunities. The federal restitution process ensured complete financial recovery while creating legal precedent for aggressive prosecution of family financial crimes. Professional opportunities expanded as my consulting business gained recognition for expertise in detecting financial fraud and protecting vulnerable clients. Speaking engagements at conferences and training seminars provided platforms for educating other professionals about warning signs of elder financial abuse. Marriage to Sarah deepened throughout the challenging experience as we supported each other through family trauma and legal proceedings. Our partnership demonstrated resilience and commitment that strengthened our foundation for building healthy relationships in the future. Community recognition included awards from elder advocacy organizations and invitations to serve on nonprofit boards focused on financial protection for vulnerable populations. The positive impact of exposing my parents' crimes extended far beyond personal justice to systemic change that protected other potential victims. Local media coverage evolved from scandal reporting to feature stories about recovery justice and the importance of family accountability. Our mountain wedding photos were featured in lifestyle magazines as examples of authentic celebration versus materialistic display. The most meaningful validation came from letters received from other adult children who had recognized similar patterns of financial manipulation in their own families. My public courage in confronting family criminality encouraged others to seek help and report suspected elder abuse. Prison correspondence from my parents revealed their continued inability to accept responsibility for criminal choices. Their letters focused on self-pity and attempts to manipulate family loyalty rather than genuine remorse for the harm they had caused to vulnerable clients. Marcus attempted reconciliation through awkward phone calls that demonstrated his ongoing entitlement and lack of understanding about the gravity of his participation in family fraud. His requests for financial assistance showed complete disconnect from the reality of his criminal liability. The federal courthouse steps where my parents had been sentenced became a symbolic location for our engagement photos when we planned our second wedding celebration. The contrast between their criminal downfall and our authentic happiness provided powerful imagery about choosing justice over family loyalty. Professional liability insurance settlements provided additional compensation for victims while creating industry pressure for stronger oversight of accounting practices and client fund protection. The Thompson Accounting Services case became required reading in professional ethics courses throughout Colorado. Our second anniversary approached with plans for expanding the celebration to include everyone who had supported us during the crisis. The mountain cabin where we had married would host a renewal ceremony honoring both our commitment and the community of people who had helped us achieve justice. 2 years later, Sarah and I stood again at the same mountain cabin where we had exchanged vows during the darkest period of our lives. This time, 50 friends and family members gathered to celebrate not just our marriage, but the complete transformation that courage and justice had brought to our community. The federal restitution process had recovered $3.4 million for 73 elderly victims of my parents' fraud scheme. Every stolen penny was returned with interest, and additional damages were awarded for emotional suffering and lost investment opportunities. Martha Henderson used her recovered funds to establish a trust for her grandchildren's college education. Robert Franklin donated his settlement to a retirement home that provided financial counseling for vulnerable seniors. My parents remained in federal prison in Florence, Colorado, serving their 8-year sentences while continuing to make monthly restitution payments that would extend for the rest of their lives. Their correspondence revealed gradual acceptance of responsibility for their crimes, though genuine remorse remained difficult to determine. Robert Thompson's recent letters showed the beginning of self-awareness about decades of favoritism and financial manipulation. He acknowledged that his treatment of Marcus and me had been fundamentally unfair and harmful to our family relationships. His willingness to participate in prison therapy programs suggested potential for personal growth during incarceration. Linda Thompson struggled more with accepting accountability, continuing to blame external circumstances for choices that had systematically harmed vulnerable clients. Her letters focused on self-pity and requests for family forgiveness rather than acknowledgement of the pain she had caused to elderly victims. Marcus completed his own 18-month federal sentence for conspiracy and money laundering emerging from prison, with apparent understanding of his role in enabling family criminality. His participation in rehabilitation programs and victim impact counseling had created space for genuine reflection about entitlement and responsibility. His attempts at reconciliation, through carefully written letters, demonstrated recognition of the harm caused by decades of accepting fraudulent financial benefits. Marcus acknowledged that his lifestyle expectations had contributed to our parents' pressure to steal from clients, and he expressed commitment to making amends through community service and continued restitution payments. Victoria had married someone else during his incarceration, choosing a partner from her own social circle whose family background could withstand scrutiny. Her new relationship highlighted the importance of character and integrity over superficial attraction and material displays. The accounting firm building had been converted into a community center, providing free financial counseling and elder protection services. Local nonprofit organizations used the space to educate vulnerable populations about recognizing and reporting financial fraud, creating positive legacy from the site of criminal activity. Professional licensing boards throughout Colorado had strengthened oversight requirements and mandatory reporting protocols as a direct result of the Thompson Accounting Services scandal. Annual ethics training now included case studies about family financial crimes and the importance of placing client welfare above personal relationships. My consulting practice had grown into a team of specialists focusing on forensic accounting and elder protection services. We partnered with law enforcement agencies, nonprofit organizations, and professional associations to detect and prevent financial crimes against vulnerable populations. Speaking engagements at conferences nationwide allowed me to share lessons learned from confronting family criminality and the importance of choosing justice over loyalty when relatives engage in harmful behavior. These presentations consistently generated standing ovations and requests for additional training. Sarah's graphic design business flourished as our partnership provided emotional stability and mutual support during challenging professional growth. Her creative work increasingly focused on nonprofit organizations and social justice causes using artistic skills to advance positive community change. Our decision to start a family brought new dimension to conversations about breaking generational patterns of dysfunction and favoritism. Prenatal counseling focused on creating healthy parenting strategies based on equality, honesty, and unconditional love, rather than manipulation and control. The scholarship fund, established with recovered money, had provided college assistance to 12 first-generation students from low-income families throughout Colorado. Their success stories included future teachers, social workers, and financial advisors committed to protecting vulnerable populations from exploitation. Elder abuse prevention organizations had received ongoing donations from our recovery settlement, funding research education, and victim advocacy programs that protected hundreds of additional seniors from financial crimes. The multiplier effect of our courage extended far beyond personal justice. Community recognition included awards from the Colorado Attorney General's Office, AARP advocacy groups, and professional associations throughout the financial services industry. These honors emphasized the social impact of refusing to enable family criminality regardless of personal cost. Extended family relationships had healed along lines of integrity rather than biological connection. Cousins Jennifer and Michael maintained close friendships based on shared values, while relatives who had enabled my parents' crimes remained permanently estranged from our lives. Uncle David's cooperation with federal prosecutors and genuine remorse for his participation in the medical emergency deception had earned supervised probation rather than prison time. His commitment to community service and ongoing therapy demonstrated accountability that created space for eventual forgiveness. Holiday celebrations centered around Sarah's family and our circle of chosen relationships, rather than obligatory biological connections. The warmth and authenticity of these gatherings highlighted the difference between healthy family dynamics and toxic patterns disguised as tradition. Professional therapy had provided tools for processing complex grief about losing family relationships, while gaining clarity about generational patterns that required interruption. The work of rebuilding identity around chosen values rather than inherited dysfunction created foundation for healthy parenting. Our mountain cabin renewal ceremony included readings from letters received from other adult children who had found courage to report family financial crimes after hearing our story. The ripple effects of standing up for justice had protected dozens of additional families from similar victimization. The federal courthouse where my parents had been sentenced now featured a memorial garden dedicated to elder abuse prevention, funded partially through our advocacy and donations from the broader community. The space provided peaceful reflection about the importance of protecting vulnerable populations. Martha Henderson, now 88 years old, served as honorary grandmother at our renewal ceremony, representing the community of survivors who had reclaimed their dignity through our willingness to expose family criminality. Her presence symbolized the healing that justice brings to entire communities. Local media coverage had evolved from scandal reporting to inspirational stories about courage, accountability, and the transformation possible when individuals choose moral principles over family loyalty. Our journey became a case study taught in ethics courses and social work programs, as we exchanged renewed vows surrounded by people who represented authentic love and support. I reflected on the profound life lesson that emerged from our ordeal. True family is built through mutual respect, honesty, and commitment to each other's well-being, rather than biological connection or social obligation. The courage required to hold family members accountable for destructive behavior ultimately protects not only direct victims, but entire communities from similar harm. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable someone's worst impulses, even when that person shares your DNA. Justice serves multiple purposes beyond punishing wrongdoing. It validates victims' experiences, creates deterrent effects for potential criminals, and establishes social precedent that no relationship justifies tolerating harmful behavior toward vulnerable people. Our mountain wedding had begun as emergency response to crisis, but it evolved into celebration of values that create lasting happiness. Authentic relationships based on trust and equality provide foundation for building the kind of family that nurtures growth rather than enabling dysfunction. The money we recovered became less important than the community we gained through choosing courage over comfort. The elderly clients who regained their financial security, the students who received scholarship assistance, and the families who avoided similar victimization represented the true wealth created through moral action. Sarah's hand in mine as we concluded our ceremony carried the weight of shared adversity overcome through partnership and principle. The mountain landscape surrounding us symbolized the solid foundation that authentic love provides when tested by life's most challenging circumstances. Standing together before our chosen family, We had transformed personal betrayal into community protection, private pain into public service, and family dysfunction into healthy relationship modeling for future generations. I want to ask you something that gets to the heart of this entire experience. When family members engage in behavior that harms vulnerable people, do we have a moral obligation to choose justice over loyalty even when it means permanent estrangement from biological relatives? How do we balance love for family with responsibility to protect innocent victims from continued harm? I hope this story encourages you to think about the relationships in your own life and the courage sometimes required to do what is right rather than what is comfortable. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up if it resonated with you. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about overcoming life's most difficult challenges, and share this with someone who might benefit from hearing about the power of choosing integrity over obligation. Thank you for joining Sarah and me on this journey from betrayal to justice to healing. Remember that authentic family is built through character and choice, not just shared genetics. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is hold people accountable for their actions, especially when those actions harm others who cannot protect themselves. Until next time, choose courage over comfort, and never let anyone convince you that family loyalty requires enabling harmful behavior toward innocent people.